It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of our beloved mother and grandmother, Mrs. Margaret John, better known as Tikuli or T.E. of Bogies, Babono, who passed away at the Victoria Hospital on Tuesday, 4th June at approximately 10:45 a.m. She was 90 years old. She was predeceased by her husband, Gabriel John, better known as Gabu, her son, Honorable Kenneth David John, and her daughter, Julietta John, all of Bogies. Left to mourn, her 4 daughters, Mrs. Shirley Thomas of Balata, Mrs. Pamela Finister, accountant at St. Lucia Cold Storage, Mrs. Christine St. Helen of Brooklyn, New York, Mrs. Paula St. Edwards, health assistant at the Lager Healthcare Facility. 4 sons, Mr. Robert Melius of Redwi, Mr. Andrew Modest, better known as Errands of California, Mr. Elias Melius of Mondador, retired housekeeping supervisor at the Royal St. Lucian Hotel, Mr. Everest John, District Education Officer, District 2. 17 grandchildren, Valerie, Stephen and Candy Thomas, Brian and Pearl Melius, and Jan Finister Martin, all of London, England, Petrina James, J. Finister, Daisy Fannis, also known as Cookie, Tarek St. Helen, all of Brooklyn, New York, Olin Snack in Canada, Kieran John, Dale John, McKenwin Hippolyte, Jeff Eugene, Angel John, and Gabriel John, also known as TG, all in St. Lucia. 10 great-grandchildren, Daniel, Joseph, and Tehila Thomas, Yasmin and Lauren Melius, all of England, Jesse and Jesslyn Chasney, Siobhan Smith, Lizzie John, and McKenna Hippolyte in St. Lucia. Sons-in-law, Mr. Remy Thomas in Balata, Mr. James Finister of Leclerc, lecturer at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Mr. Candia St. Helen of Brooklyn, New York, Mr. Hanson St. Edward of Bogies, better known as Marie, employee of Lyme. Daughters-in-law, Mrs. Elizabeth Melius of Redwi, Mrs. Bernadette Melius of Mondador, Mrs. Patricia John of Plateau, teacher at the Babono Infant School. Brother Cletus Philippi, better known as Toss of Gara, Babono. Nieces, Mrs. Florence Monroe in Viewfort, Mrs. Mary Jean Augustine in Florida, Amali, Eunice, and Mary Flaw in Cayenne, Julia Filbert and Helen Elcock in England, Margarita Filbert of Mondador, Mary Ford, also known as Sino of Bogies, Magdalene Alfred, also known as Georgie of Bogies, Luciana Joseph, also known as Edo of Bogies, and Dora John of Bogies, Eulina Delise of Deramo, Janice, Sandy, Andrea, and Mitchell. Nephews, Adam Melius in England, Stanley Melius of Bogies, Aurelia, Laura, Ait, Anthony, all of Bogies, Shaka, Kirby, and Vialia in St. Lucia. Cousins, Mrs. Monica Lantico of Arizona, the Lenny family of St. Lucia, Arlette and Romanus Melius of Bogies, Claudia Edmonds of Mondador. Goddaughters, Sophia Melius, Euris, Claudia, and Mitchell. Best friends, Arkia, Tate, Ayuta, Alvinia, and Tisuk of Bogies. Mrs. Josephine Seeley, also known as Marodney of Gara. Her carers, Linda and Mary Abraham in Bogies. Also left to mourn, the Melius, John and Anthony family of Bogies, the Clements family of Pebush, the entire Bogies community, other family and friends too numerous to mention. The funeral service of the late Mrs. Margaret John, better known as Tikuli or T.E. of Bogies, will be held at the Good Shepherd Church, Babono, on Friday, 14th June 2013 at 3 p.m. The body will be interred at the Gara Cemetery. The body now lies at the Rambali's funeral parlor on Calvi Road, Castries.